my name is Laura Vargas. I'm the Director of Outreach Programs for Peer Support Community Partners, and this is Grief in the Wake, conversations about suicide and substance-related loss, a video series where we touch briefly on topics related to losing a loved one to suicide or substance-related causes. Today's topic is on stigma, prejudice, and discrimination in the grief experience.
My name is Joanna. I'm with Safety, Hope, and Healing Counseling and Consulting. And we want to start by defining our terms. So stigma is often discussed in this kind of death. And stigma is defined as kind of a mark of disgrace. And the reason why we're including prejudice and discrimination here is that we really want to move away from the implication that there is a mark on someone who has lost a person to suicide or overdose death, because we don't believe that there should be. We don't believe that that is something that should be on that person, on the griever. Prejudice is beliefs held, right, that are usually negative, usually stereotypes, and discrimination is sort of acts that result from that. And that is kind of on the people that are holding those prejudices and acting in discriminatory ways. And so that language feels a little bit more accurate to us. And we know that stigma is something that is being discussed widely. And so we want to acknowledge that it is what's in common parlance. And when we think about this and we look at the literature around stigma and prejudice and discrimination that people feel after deaths, we're going to start by saying that we live in a really not grief-informed society, right? And so with every kind of death, people often feel losses of the people in their lives, like social support isn't always there. This is true in so many ways around suicide and drug-related deaths, where there is discrimination from other people who just don't know how to show up. There's discrimination often that people feel towards themselves, right? That they feel like they can't share what they've been through or how the person died in many cases. And then there's structural discrimination that people experience. Very often systems that are set up to help bereaved people are really discriminatory after a drug-related or suicide loss.
Absolutely. And this comes up in unique ways when we talk about suicide and substance-related causes. So as Joanna alluded to, individuals might not receive as much support as they otherwise would, just by virtue of the cause of death. Those who you would expect to show up for you, they might not. Secondly, individuals might say hurtful and harmful comments, things like, they did this to themselves. They could have chosen otherwise. Why would they choose to do such a thing? These are things that serve absolutely no purpose in supporting somebody in their grief experience. Yet, unfortunately, far too many have heard these things said from those that they care about, from those that they expected to show up for them. Third, people might question themselves, question their actions, question what they could have done differently, gone through the shoulda, coulda, woulda rabbit holes of trying to gain an understanding of this. And a lot of times when people are placing so much responsibility and blame on themselves, that can come from stigma, from prejudice, from even discrimination. And fourth, individuals might isolate themselves, might grieve in silence, might not share their story where they otherwise would, for fear of tarnishing that person's reputation or their own reputation, the individual's legacy, for fear that the community would not understand the whole picture of that person's life.
Yeah. And there's more and more research coming out about how this both impacts the griever and impacts other people, right? In a recent article, Nothing to Mourn Here, he was just a drug user. There's some information about some of the things, the horrific things that people who've lost someone to a drug-related death hear. And I'll show you this, some of those categories of things. We also know that very often that discrimination that people experience in the wake of these losses is a driver for increases in suicidal thoughts, in substance use, right? That we're seeing so much uptick for people who've experienced these losses in those exact behaviors. And we know that the discrimination is such a big driver for that. So some of the things that we've heard from people can be really helpful is to be able to name it, just to be able to say, this is what happened, right? Own your story, right? Tell your truth about the experience, and then educate yourself too about what that really means about substance use, about suicide, right? About the reasons why there should not be discrimination towards people who are experiencing that. And then, if it feels right, educate others, right? If there's opportunities to really sort of correct when people say these hurtful things, whether that's on an interpersonal, right, sort of in relationship with other people, or on a broader scale around advocacy, really thinking about, how do you find safe people? How do you find your tribe and people who are going to get it if the other people in your life are really not able to understand and are responding in ways that are discriminatory?
Yeah, and that's exactly what peer grief support is. It's connecting with others who get it, connecting with individuals over that shared lived experience. Peer grief support is available virtually, in person, one on one, in groups. It's finding what works for you. There's also, of course, professional grief support available. You could connect with a grief therapist, with a grief counselor, virtually, in person, just kind of trying different things out. There are also supportive websites, social media pages, podcasts, books, different things that people can explore that might be supportive to them in their grief journeys. All we really can do is try different things and see what works. So with this video, we thank you for watching. If you have other topics that you want to hear more about, please let us know. Our contact information will be available where you're watching this video. We'd love to hear from you all, but thank you so much.
Thank you.